Great to be with one of the foremost authorities on name, image, and likeness in this country. He is a partner and the chair of sports law at Porter Wright here in Columbus. This weekend or this day, we are speaking to him from the NCAA men's and women's tournaments in Texas, where he is imparting so much of his knowledge on NIL and what it means for student athletes. Luke, thanks for being with us today. We noticed in a recent story on World News Tonight on ABC, Pat Chun was in there. He's a former OSU staffer and now the athletic director at Washington State. And he was lamenting some of the issues with it, and there are many, good and bad, that still being used as a recruiting inducement, a pay-for-play, tampering was another thing that he mentioned. But I guess as we try to roll this out, and it's only been, what you said, 18, 19 months, I think. How is it going?
So first, Clay, thanks for having me. Name, image, and likeness is operating in many respects as it was intended, where student athletes can license the use of their name, image, and likeness to a third party for compensation. That is most certainly happening. But we also know that there are things like tampering, pay for play involved in this name, image, and likeness space. But again, we are still so new in this space that there's a lot of discussion about how do we help make sure that we can effect a safe and equal playing field for all those who are involved. But let's not forget, even before name, image, and likeness, there were student athletes who were receiving compensation and money in other ways that were outside of the rules. So name, image, and likeness didn't cause this all of a sudden to happen. It's just brought to light some of the challenges that we've seen in the college sports landscape.
Many people, college administrators, and Gene Smith included, have talked or maybe even hoped, and I don't know if this is still the case, that there might be some federal intervention here, that the U.S. government might get involved in trying to coordinate NIL. Where do you see that right now, Luke?
So there really has been a push at the congressional level to be able to have a national standard for name, image, and likeness. Just this past week, we had the subcommittee of the House Energy and Commerce Committee having hearings on name, image, and likeness. The U.S. Senate Commerce Committee is having conversation around potentially holding hearings and looking at what legislation could look like. There are some challenges here, though, and some of the challenges are that the deeper you go in terms of what you want the federal government to do or in how they should engage in this legislation for name, image, and likeness, the more challenging and the more partisan it gets. If you were to stay at the high level of just allowing for name, image, and likeness as a federal right for all college student athletes and determining how that's going to be enforced, either through the NCAA or through a combination of the NCAA and a government agency, that's a little bit easier. But if we were to look at this idea of diving deeper into international student athletes and how can international student athletes engage, now you start to run into immigration laws. When we think about, as we heard in the hearings this past week, around this idea of student athletes as employees becomes a much more divisive issue. So there are some really deep-seated challenges that we face as it relates to the future of college sports. But if we look at name, image, and likeness on its surface level, we potentially could see something come out of Congress, potentially as early as this summer.
Wow, and that looked way off not that long ago, did it not?
No one thought. I would be the first to admit I didn't think that we were going to see that. But again, if we stay at that surface level of allowing name, image, and likeness as a national standard, a federal right for student athletes, and just keep it at that, then we could potentially see something happen before football season, even this fall.
Luke, tell us what you're doing in Texas as you sort of explain and give folks the details on NIL. And what are the most asked questions that you still get from athletes? A two-parter there.
Sure. Here in Texas, this week has been very full, and it continues to remain full. On Tuesday was at the McDonald's All-American, and so for the parents of McDonald's All-American boys and girls players, had the opportunity to speak with parents in a session where spent a lot of time talking about name, image, and likeness and other challenges that their student athletes will soon face going into college. Been able to speak at the National Association of Basketball Coaches, at their Collegiate Coaches Association consortium, and talk about name, image, and likeness and helping coaches understand. Because let's also remember, name, image, and likeness, because it is new, You have a lot of administrators and a lot of coaches who are good on the X's and O's, good on the budget and the planning and whatever their role is within the administration. But then to now be thrust into this space of having to figure out how do we manage our student athletes earning compensation like they've never been able to earn before? So there's still a learning curve for a lot of coaches as well. So I spent time with the Coaches Consortium yesterday. And then we'll be working with USA Basketball and talking to parents of USA Basketball players to help them understand opportunities from an education perspective for the parents. And then also going to drop in on the ethics committee for the NCAA as well on Sunday. So a lot of different moving parts throughout the weekend, but hopefully going to get to see some good basketball as part of it as well.
And what is the hottest question from kids who are just now able to earn as a college athlete?
Without question, one of the number one kind of inquiries that we get from student athletes is, how do I get started? How do I navigate this? I've heard that you can get paid, but how do I actually do that? Number two is, how do I protect myself as I start to get paid? One of the things that we've learned very quickly is that student athletes first don't fully understand what name, image, and likeness is, right? And so we have to make sure that we explain and help them understand that. But then with those opportunities for student athletes to earn compensation, it's a great opportunity. But with those opportunities come responsibilities. And the responsibilities are understanding things like budgeting, money, taxes, and understanding how taxes play a role here, but then also contracts and what people want you to sign isn't always in your best interest. So understanding how to navigate the business side of sports is most certainly on the top of the list of questions that we get.
Yeah, it's not a free ride that many had thought it might be. I've read and hear from time to time that female athletes are utilizing NIL as much as their male counterparts.
Well, I'll tell you, if we're going to talk specifically about women's basketball, name, image, and likeness is a great opportunity for women's basketball players because they're required to be in school for at least 4 years before they go to the WNBA. Now, some may stay longer because of the COVID year, redshirting, et cetera. But now those women student athletes, those women basketball players are able to earn compensation because of name, image, and likeness. And it creates a great opportunity for them. And we've seen, to your broader question, we've seen a lot of women student athletes be able to engage in name, image, and likeness across sports in so many different ways. We know about the Paige Beckers and others that are doing really big deals. But even beyond that, I was speaking with a group of women volleyball players at Ohio State who are out doing camps and clinics in the Columbus area and able to earn compensation because of that and their ability to help train and coach up younger women's volleyball players. So we're seeing women student athletes engage in name, image, and likeness in a lot of different ways. And I think it's a great thing to see. Because bottom line is, name, image, and likeness is an equal opportunity for student athletes, no matter their gender, no matter their sport, to be able to go out and earn compensation in ways that student athletes have never been able to do.
Ohio State has 2 or 3 foundations. One is called the Foundation, et cetera, and they're doing fundraisers. And you would think Ohio State would be cutting edge and out there, but you are asking folks to, hey, I support the university, I buy tickets, I'm a booster, et cetera. And now you want me to give more to NIL and that kitty that will help retain some of our best players. Is that a challenge not only for Ohio State, but other schools?
Well, it's certainly a challenge. And the challenge when you look at it is the fact that oftentimes when a donor or a booster gives money to an athletic department, there's a return on that. Maybe there's a tax benefit. Maybe they get their name posted on something. They get access to the coaches, administrators. When you decide to invest in the name, image, and likeness opportunities, that can be a challenge because many are asking, what is my return there? But I think one of the things I think Ohio State has really done well is engaging in the corporate community and helping the corporate community to understand all of the different opportunities that come with name, image, and likeness in working with Ohio State student athletes. Let's not forget, for decades, the NCAA institutions have told companies and businesses, don't give any impermissible benefit to our student athletes. Don't jeopardize their eligibility. And then all of a sudden on July 1st of 2021, the switch got flipped and said, hey, no, come work with our student athletes. So companies are still trying to figure out, how do we effectively do that? How do we navigate name, image, and likeness? So I think we're going to continue to see Ohio State and other schools kind of effectively navigate helping their student athletes maximize their opportunities.
Is there a burning issue for you or something that you're tackling now in this space that we should know about?
Well, I think when we look at the college sports landscape, there are a lot of changes and potential changes coming to the college sports landscape. Obviously, we had the transfer portal coupled with name, image, and likeness creates almost a quasi-free agency. And so there are challenges there from an inducement and tampering perspective, as we talked about before. But even beyond that, there's a lot of discussion around student athletes as employees, and I think that's going to be the next big issue that gets tackled. It's currently going through one particular the Third Circuit court process, federal court process, but then we also have the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, that's taking up this issue as well out on the West Coast. So I think that in the future we're going to get to a point where there's going to be a pretty definitive kind of statement, and whether that has to come from the United States Supreme Court if we end up with a circuit split, or if it comes, from some other path. I think that ultimately that's going to have to be decided, and that is a major issue that we're going to have to deal with in college sports. And then additionally, the last one, I think that's another one, is what does potential revenue share look like for college student athletes, and is that something that makes sense or it doesn't? And we heard that and come up in some of the NIL hearings. But beyond that, when you start to talk about a multi-billion-dollar media deal for a conference, the question does remain, and the Supreme Court and the NCAA versus Alston kind of brought up some of this questioning about the massive amounts of money in college sports. Do student athletes who actually make the product that gets viewed, do they have any type of right to share in those earnings? So I think there are some massive questions that are facing college sports that we're going to continue to deal with now and into the future.
Yeah, you're talking about collective bargaining there, right? Some of that?
You're talking about collective bargaining, potential unionization. And from that perspective, it changes the paradigm. It changes the dynamic. And I'm not here to say we need to go one way or the other. I'm here to say this is the issue that is going to confront the leaders in college sports, both now and into the future.
And that's why folks like Ohio State, Gene Smith, and others may pull away, right, from the NCAA and form their own 20, 30, 40, 50 power conference and do this on their own.
That's really been one of the bigger questions as to what does the future of college sports look like generally, but more specifically, what does the future of college football look like? Because as we know, college football really drives a lot. It drives conference realignment. It drives revenues to institutions through their media deals and other opportunities. So whereas college football goes, that's going to help direct a lot of what the future of college sports looks like. And that's where there have been conversations of what would it look like if the top so many schools went under the college football playoff, especially when we look at an expanded playoff that drives billions and billions of dollars every single year. That creates a massive change that I think can't be ignored, and I think will most certainly be dealt with in the coming months.
Luke, I know you'll be around to navigate that because you are one of the top authorities on NIL and have helped so many as they jump into this pool and try to tread water and make their way and give their own student athletes a chance to earn some of the revenue that they do deserve. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to add, sir?
No, Clay, I appreciate the time. It's always good to talk to you, my man.
All right. Safe travels, my friend.
Hey, thank you so much.
See you soon.